Judgment Day has arrived for Sukuna. Yuta's purple landed a direct hit, but guess what? He survived! Gather round everyone, let's all pretend to be shocked, because what's truly surprising is Yuji unlocking another power-up with Dismantle picking up the king. So, besides the author confirming this is the final arc, Gege must have saw all the misogyny allegations, cause my man gave Angel a generational comeback, triggering Sukuna's end. However, with plan A, B, C, D, H, I, J,
A few moments later,
W, X, Y failing, how did plan Z start winning? Well, chapter 263 picks off with Yuta firing purple at Sukuna. But just as our community had predicted, Yuta's attempt turned out to be a success and a failure. The king of off-screening somehow tanked it without Gege showing its impact.
I'm so sick of this company.
Sukuna's plot armor claims that it's because Yuta isn't used to Limitless, so although he's injured substantially, it wasn't fatal. The plot armor gets even thicker though, because even if it wasn't fatal, Sukuna's domain should have collapsed, as he would struggle to maintain the barrier, therefore letting Unlimited Void sure hit to game end the fight. But Gege said, nah, I glaze, as Yuta's domain collapses at the same time.
It's pretty difficult to put into words how disgusted I am, how depressed I am.
But as soon as this happens, we see Yuji and Todo ready to jump Sukuna, and Todo pushes Yuta to recover his technique to fire purple again. He doesn't care if he and Yuji are in range of the attack, as he can use Boogie Woogie to avoid it. Seeing this panel was magnificent. Mwah. Because it's a callback to Gojo talking to Gakuganji that the new generation won't be limited to special grade. Wait. Oh no! Yuta face planted! Both he and Sukuna are in a stalemate because of curse technique burnout for now. But his 5-minute timer has ran out sooner than it should have. Bruh, bring the tissue somebody, because Yuta gets yet another death flag.
Oh no.
Because instead of Limitless being burnt out from using domain expansion like he assumed, it was Kenjaku's brain hopping. Yuta explains that since Rika is still with his original corpse, the copy technique would still belong to that body rather than Gojo's. But that is not the case. He couldn't figure out the trick behind Kenjaku using his host body, despite curse technique burnout. Yuta didn't take any information like that in when copying the technique, which is quite sad because that information was available and Kenjaku was in the same situation. In chapter 205, Kenjaku faced Yuki, where he suffered curse technique burnout. Yuki stated that if more than 3 to 4 techniques were used, then his brain would be overloaded. So the answer was there somewhere, as Kenjaku did not drop dead. This revelation means brain hopping requires activation at all times, meaning Meme's third option from chapter 261, it's completely debunked. Numbers 1 and 2 will result in Yuta's death. It's a warida for our boy, unless he figures out the trick or fixes burnout by doing the impossible and healing his brain with reverse curse technique just like Gojo. This means the Sukuna challenger cycle hasn't stopped, people. Yeah.
Him, her, bodies.
But in the meantime, Yuta creates a barrier for Todo and Yuji as his final move. This leaves Todo distracted as he realizes that Yuta has reached his limit, which leaves an opportunity for Sukuna to land his 5th massive black flash to break the Vibra Slap. As a result, Boogie Woogie has lost a part of its function, where Todo uses his 530,000 IQ to instead start hitting it on his head.
This is big brain time.
The barrier shards Yuta is creating are hundreds of pieces floating around for Todo to swap at any moment, making things even more difficult than they already are, where Sukuna said adapting to his technique is essentially impossible. So ladies and gentlemen, the stage is set. Yuji's MC moment unlocks a power-up.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for.
In chapter 257, Yuji demonstrated that he had achieved a modern and refined version of Shrine, but he's upgraded it to unlock a dismantle that can even hit souls with a binding vow. This is a massive development, as each time Yuji hits the king, he uses Dismantle to aim at the boundary between Megami and Sukuna's souls. He already ensured that there's considerable damage with his 8 Black Flash soul punches, but now, with Dismantle, he is taking the fight to another level. Yuji declares that he will do this as many times as it takes until Megami wakes up, which he should, since it would be feeling like this in the inside. These attacks leave Sukuna shell-shocked because Yuji is using restrictions on a technique's target, cutting up the soul far better than his punches. This entire scene plays homage to Gohan making Cell vomit 18 and losing power because Goji made Sukuna throw up his own fingers, admitting his imminent defeat.
That's what I'm talking about.
But as he starts eating them back to maintain this body, Sukuna pushes forward, claiming everything will be fine as long as he avoids Yuji's blows, as they have no more effective moves against him. However, this is where he's wrong. During a taijutsu clash with Yuji, with both their ideals never backing down in a slugfest, Todo wishes for Boogie Woogie to work one last time and tries to bang it against his head, but it fails. At least that's what he wants Sukuna to believe. In truth, Todo switched a shard with Angel in the sky above Sukuna.
Wallahi, you're finished. Wallahi, you're finished.
How did this happen? Well, we get a flashback that's connected back to chapter 220, finishing off the other half of the meeting that Yuta had with Angel. In that chapter, he initially asked if they could transfer Angel to another sorcerer so that their technique could be utilized in battle, since Hana is in no condition to fight. But we learned it was impossible, as none of them know how to become curse items after death. Angel claims her role will be finished once Gojo's unsealed, but that's when Hana asks what would happen to Megami, as she has loved him since childhood. This moves us back to chapter 263 with Yuta handing them another role to save her future husband, an all or nothing gamble to split Sukuna and Megami's souls. Yuta states that if his domain is defeated, they will set up a situation where Sukuna will be too weak to fight her, and they will use his strategic thinking to his disadvantage. His belief in how this plan works is based on the strength of copy. According to Yuta, when a technique is copied, people pay less attention to the original user of the technique. This means that his opponents tend to focus solely on the techniques Yuta possesses and the number he has in stock. Moreover, if they understand his copying conditions, it is easy to misinterpret his actions as stealing rather than copying. In this way, they fail to consider the original users with the same techniques appearing, just like Sukuna has done in this very chapter. Ultimately, the true strength of copying lies in the ability to possess two identical cards simultaneously. As a result, in this crucial moment, Jacob's ladder has been activated at maximum output, a much more powerful version than what we saw in chapter 213. Like, did you know Gege even redrew that panel for the volume where Sukuna was cooked, burnt like a crispy fried chicken? So how will he survive this time? Personally, I think this is one of the best written final fights in a manga, being comparable to the raid against Miriam in Hunter x Hunter. Like, without a doubt, it's better than the likes of Muzan and All for One, who fell flat at the end, where they fell into the trope of being too arrogant and incompetent, resulting in stupid decisions. However, Sukuna maintains the agenda of having the battle IQ of a master, forcing the protagonist to make sacrifices and gambles that have severe consequences. He survived 2 Jacob ladders beforehand, but that's when he was healthy and had more curse energy. This time round, his soul and control are at its lowest point. For example, after Yuta's ladder on the king whilst using his domain, Sukuna tanked additional damage after that, such as hollow purple, 8 black flashes, pumping his heart manually thanks to Maki, cleaves to the soul, 2 arms missing, a damaged stomach that stops his chance, half his curse energy reserves, and much more. But there's a slight problem. You're probably thinking, landing a black flash in this chapter has helped Sukuna restore positive energy and his technique output, right? Just like before. Well, no, because remember, we learned in chapter 258 that in a similar fashion to Gojo, Sukuna learned to establish a unique RCT relay in his awakened state. However, Yuji's onslaught of attacks at the boundaries of souls trampled on his hopes at recovering reverse curse technique. So, guys, this might be it. Sukuna's dead. Actually dead. But wait a second, I'm scratching my head here. Should we be celebrating? Doesn't that mean Megami will die too? After all, Angel revealed in chapter 199 that the soul of the vessel is completely rewritten with reincarnation and they lose their lives. However, her own statement regarding the separation of a vessel and the reincarnated soul only makes sense when the vessel retains its life or soul. Even if the chances are low, the possibility of such a scenario existing solidifies Mahito's stand in the whole body vs soul debate with Kenjaku in chapter 91. According to him, the soul comes before the body, meaning that the soul is the core of a person's existence rather than the body. This is why Yuki's research into souls and Yuji's knowledge about their shape understood that 2 souls mixed together can never become one. Angel states that reincarnated players go against the law of God because the host's soul are permanently erased as though they never existed, which stops living things from having a natural death, going against Yuji's entire goal as an MC to give everyone a good one. For example, even in chapter 91, Kenjaku experienced something he hadn't seen before when Gojo calls out Geto for letting him control his body. This is even further substantiated by Yuji himself. Despite being deliberately created by Kenjaku, his existence as a vessel that can suppress a soul like Sukuna means that not every vessel loses its life, explaining why Sukuna had to wait for the moment Megami's soul broke. Therefore, he can be saved once Sukuna's hit with Jacob's ladder. But there's an elephant in the room, and it's a big one costing millions of lives. Kenjaku's left the most chaos-creating device with Sukuna, the activation to kick off Tengen's merger, which means that in the last moment, Sukuna could activate it, and the last bits of his soul will also combine in this merger to create the grossest creature ever, which will have to be defeated by none other than Yuji Itadori. Now, to enjoy more peak fiction, watch this video about Ciel, Rimuru wife in Tensura, as she happens to have some of the most busted powers and loves the dude.